Good morning. So a quick question. How many of the folks in this room are network operators, mobile, cable? Got a few, okay. And the rest of the folks are presumably part of the vendor community? Look, this message, interestingly, is largely tailored to the operators in the room, because one of the surprises of this conference so far is the fact that it seems that the vendor community very much accepts this recent development of a shift of television to the cloud that we're going to talk about this morning, and that's a very good thing. But it seems also at the same time that the operator community is a little bit confused. So I'm here to put to bed for our operator friends some of your perhaps beliefs about where the space is going. Of course, I meant to challenge and provoke, and then we can go from there. So obviously, as the title of my presentation this morning states, the cloud can put your legacy pay TV out of business in 90 days. So we're going to talk about how we can do that. So first thing, hard truth. IPTV is dead. So for the folks that are building and manufacturing boxes, I'm sorry. The folks that are moving everything to the cloud, this is exciting, a truly exciting time. But the hard truth is that this conference used to be called IPTV, and now it's called TV Connect, and that's for a reason. And I've seen over the 4 years that I've been speaking and attending this conference, a massive shift from what was really about fixed networks, very controlled environments, walled gardens in the context of IPTV on operator networks, to this wonderful, ramshackle, exciting, revolutionary time that we're in as we make this transition to the cloud. But make no mistake, IPTV is dead. So truth number one, there's no such thing as television anymore. We live in a world where video is consumed either now or later and on multiple screens over a variety of networks. And I think that that's a truth that most of the folks in this room would accept. Truth number two, consumer behavior on a global basis is set to change much faster than the global television distribution industry. So for the operators, for the vendors, consumers are ready for this change. They're leading the change, and most interestingly, it's happening in places outside of North America and Europe. So let's talk about that for a second. Most importantly, so the proposition underlying the second truth is that smartphones now outsell dumb phones. So feature phones are very quickly becoming a thing of the past. Our head of product has this wonderful saying that I like to steal from him because it really is a kind of basic, fundamental truth, that the smartphone is about to become the remote control for your life. So everything from the Internet of Things to, most importantly, the television viewing experience, where the smartphone becomes the place where you interact, search, discover, program your own television experience. And leading the charge, of course, is consumer behavior, because now folks are buying more of those than traditional phones. Second, the mobile internet. The mobile internet is the internet outside of the United States or North America and Western Europe. Most interestingly, however, we have not reached a consensus on network architecture. We believe that there will be hybrid networks. For example, I met with the chairman of a large ISP in Africa just a few short weeks ago, and he believes that in his country, given the regulatory framework and basically the chaos surrounding the introduction of 4G, that Wi-Fi set to reach something like 40% penetration in the next 5 years. I mean, you know, he's got an incentive to say that. He's a Wi-Fi operator, but still, it's an interesting perspective. I will say this, that mobility, the notion of taking a radio network, whether it's unregulated spectrum in the form of Wi-Fi or a 4G or even a 5G network as these things start to roll out, these hybrid approaches to networking are going to be how people outside of North America and Western Europe access the internet. There's no such thing as a television set anymore. We like to say at UUX that a television set is just a client on a network. All right, truth number 3. Unless, as an industry, we recognize this change and get out in front of this change, a $270 billion pay TV market is going to be lost to faster, nimbler competitors. And my friends, if you don't think it's going to happen, I just drove by, and many of you did as well, this morning on the Kensington High Street, the European offices of Universal Music, now including EMI. Right? EMI, the label of the Beatles. There are 3 major music companies in the world today, down from hundreds of record labels in the 1960s. So can you spot the risk? Truth number 4, network operators, if you don't recognize that we're in the middle of this shift, and if you're unwilling to get in front of it, you will be the authors of your own demise. Why? Because you already spent all this money. You spent money on legacy pay TV infrastructure. You spent money on IPTV. And you're thinking, I'm not wasting any more money until this space starts to consolidate, until this space begins to normalize. Why? There's a wonderful notion coming from, interestingly, the intersection of psychology and economics. In this whole study of behavioral economics, there's this notion called sunk cost, which is considered an economic fallacy. And the economic fallacy is this: just because you've spent bad money on something doesn't mean that you should continue to spend or throw money at a problem when, unfortunately, the original business context in which that business decision was made has changed. So don't get caught up in the fallacy. And lastly, if you think you can, I'm sorry, my friends, you cannot. Because the cloud is going to kill any attempts that you make to preserve or protect your legacy IPTV infrastructure. And in fact, 95%, so Informa did a study of 100 thought leaders in the space prior to this conference, and 95% of the participants in that survey said that television will move to the cloud. So in reality, we already have consensus. But here's the good news. Cloud TV is an opportunity and not a threat. It's set to experience phenomenal growth. So from just under $3 billion in revenue, or just under $4 billion in revenue in 2010, to a $28 billion industry. Very quickly, it will encapsulate and expand and hopefully grow larger than the global $270 billion market for pay TV that we have today. And lastly, and most importantly, sorry, I'm a sales guy, I got to pitch, right? UX is here to help. The reality is that despite all those hard truths that I spoke to earlier in this presentation, in fact, there is consolidation, and we're not going to take all the credit for it. There are other vendors, large vendors like equipment makers. A gentleman from Ericsson will follow me. I listened to a very insightful presentation yesterday from the folks from Huawei. This notion of movement to the cloud is already underway. The vendor community has embraced it. And most importantly, as UX, we're a small, nimble, cutting-edge company, and our view is that we're going to get out and really capture this opportunity and prove to the marketplace that this is, in fact, a reality. Why? Why do I say that? Because we've already done it. So Total Movie launched, in less than 90 days, a cloud pay TV service for Telenor in Hungary.
Explore the future of entertainment. Cheer for your favorite team. Enter the realm of fabulous tales. Or take a dive into the world of adventures with Delamar MyTV. Live TV channels and video library on tablet, mobile, and laptop. Text TV to 1750 and try it for free until the end of February. Delamar, the freedom of exploration.
At the center of this movement of television to the cloud is the notion of the interface. I began my talk this morning explaining that our head of product says that the smartphone is the remote control for your life. And at UUX, we believe that the smartphone is the beginning of your experience with television. And so you saw in the brief television commercial that we just projected up on the screen for you a view of our interface. We call this the unified user experience, or as UUX, what we call the ultimate user experience. The user experience is at the core, the key to users who are embracing smartphones, who are watching content from the cloud as the mobile internet takes off. The user experience becomes the core of the experience, and of course, that has become where we have really put a stake in the ground to offer these services. But here's the key. As a company, we offer an end-to-end managed service, starting with the client, all the way back to the network. We do everything in between. And the reason why we do that is we understand, from the perspective of the network operator, look, the space is rapidly evolving. Things are changing. You may not know how, frankly speaking, to bring up a content service. If you, network operator, greenfield, say you're operating in Central Europe. I want to compete with an incumbent pay TV operator. How do I do that? That's where we're here to help. Companies like ourselves do everything for you. So in the context of the Telenor implementation, we brought up the network using AWS infrastructure. We helped Telenor to license content, so 12 television channels, a basic library of subscription video on demand content. We localized the client for them, so in the Hungarian language. We helped with billing integration. And most importantly, we offered help with marketing. Now, my dear friend, I'm Canadian, so I can pick on my buddy Ibrahim Gideon, for the CTO of TELUS. He and I sat on a panel yesterday, and he said, guys, OTT is great. Cloud TV is great, but it's a cost center. How do I make money from this? This is the interesting thing. I was the CEO of a company called Total Movie. Total Movie was a company that was focused on, so we offered television and subscription video on demand from the cloud in Latin America. It was a company that had phenomenal user uptake, a couple million registered users, a few 100,000 credit cards that were authorized by our system, but that we couldn't bill because e-commerce infrastructure, payment infrastructure in developing countries is not up to the task of offering these value-added services. So my buddy Ibrahim said, okay, how do we make money from this? Well, Ibrahim, we already proved that you could do that in developing markets because we had millions of users who wanted our service. The problem is that they couldn't pay for it. So you, network operator, you mobile network operator, you have the opportunity as a financial gateway, as a payment mechanism, to utterly own this space. And so from our perspective, a number of my colleagues were pioneers in the premium SMS space. we know how to market content to users. And the way you do that is, back to the remote control for your life, from the smartphone. A simple, intuitive, initial sign-up page with a simple flow, and most importantly, use the telephone number. Ideally, you would be able to open up the app, authenticate saying, yes, this is my telephone number, and get the content immediately on your mobile phone. And so these are the kinds of conversations that we have with our customers. And from the perspective of UX, it's all about how do we help you market and sell the service better. So to answer your question, Ibrahim, how do we sell OTT? Well, you buy UX. Lastly, and most importantly, the ultimate user experience is all about recognizing the power of these simple slide, point, click functionality that you can start with on the smartphone, and then you can migrate that unified experience to other screens. So if television is just a client on a network, then of course you need to help the user understand that they can program whatever it is that they want to watch on their smartphone. So in the middle of the user interface here, you see something called My TV, which is this little space here. You program a playlist. You allow a user to set up a catch-up TV experience for later, and then they can go to any of their other screens and then pick up where they left off, or watch it on a scheduled basis. So it's all about taking and understanding what the user wants and then giving to them rather than the other way around. So starting with the remote control for your life, you use the smartphone to plan, to share, to discover, to enjoy content, and then, of course, you push it out to all the other screens on your own personal network via this user experience. So lastly, I want to thank you folks for letting me challenge you and provoke you this morning. And most importantly, I want to leave you with the idea that when there's great change, there is, of course, massive opportunity. A little company called What's Up was founded in 2009 by two frustrated entrepreneurs who couldn't get hired at Facebook. So they went off and built this really cool little chat app that has 450 million users and has the potential to, from a market cap perspective at least, has the potential to take over all voice services on any network in the future. If you got that many users already chatting, well, guess what comes next? I would say that the same opportunity exists today for you, but you as operators have the customer relationship, you have the trust, you have the billing platform, so it's a no-brainer. The only issue that you have right now is your fear. And I'm here to say, as a vendor community, and of course, as entrepreneurs, UX among our peers is here to help you navigate and transition through this change with the expectation that we all win and that we grow this massive opportunity as we transition television to the cloud in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.